Today, I am going to do a demo on the power of constraints, or using constraints in your art. Very simply put, is using less stuff and challenging yourself to work within those parameters. So I have up here, this is a piece of Curdy board, which is used in the building industry for tiling, and it's kind of like a heavy-duty foam core almost, and I like it because it has the grid on it too. So often what I do is actually just pin paper up to this to be able to use. So in this case I've got little bulldog clips holding my papers here, and this is acrylic paper pad. So it's made by Strathmore, and it has a linen finish on this acrylic paper pad. So I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So the linen finish is kind of nice, and it's got a nice weight to it. It's 246 pounds, which is quite heavy. And this is 6 by 6, but it's available in lots of sizes. So I really enjoy working with it for little studies. So today I'm going to work on some constraints of limiting my palette and to 2 colors. And I've looked through my paint, and I don't want to use paint that I'm precious about and I'm getting really low on. So I'm using paint that I never use. So one color that I pulled out, which I think is just the grossest color. I don't much like premixed greens anyway, other than Golden's green gold. But this is a Golden product, and it's called Permanent Green Light. And I didn't buy this. I got it when I bought up another person's studio supplies when they were closing. So this is the green, and it's just really wicked. So it is a combination of phthalo green, this green, and Hansa yellow. That's what's in it. So it's made up of those 2 colors. Phthalo is man-made. So it's brutal, and I can't use it like that. And I usually mix my greens myself, but I don't even use all that much green other than in some landscape work. So I'm going to be modifying that color, and I'm not actually going to use Hansa yellow, even though I have it. I'm going to use cad yellow. It's a hue, so it's a less expensive paint, and that wicked green. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some collage down. So that's one of my parameters, so collage. So that gives me some pattern, 2 colors plus black and white. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to modify that green, and in order to do that I'm going to have to calm it down and neutralize it. And so to do that I need a little touch of the opposite, so a touch of red. And I'm going to use some black, of course, black and white. And I'm going to limit myself to a few tools, one being my silicone brush, which I really like these. I have a few sizes, but this one's about 1.5 inches. So we want to pick something that's as big as possible, but not overly big for what we're doing. So the scale of the brush, use something larger than you think you need, but I can't use a 3-inch one on here very easily unless I want to cover the whole thing. So the other day I saw Willow at the iron oxide supply store here talk about the Da Vinci brush, and she said they were 2 feet long, and I thought, oh yeah, that's cool. So I made my own Da Vinci brush with this long skewer that I often use for making marks, and I just cable tied this brush on the end, and it's not a special brush by any means, but I thought it was a good scale to put some marks on. The other things I'm going to use are chopstick, just to make some marks, and some willow charcoal, and the Lyra graphite pencil. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is rip up some of this collage paper. Now this is collage sheet. Sorry, I'm making a lot of noise. This is the collage sheet that I made from a stamp, that I made the stamp and then made the collage and then got this photocopied. So it's laser, and it's a really, really inexpensive way of getting some nice collage paper. And it's your own, so that's cool. So I'm going to use some gel medium, and this is just regular gel medium. I often use soft, but I'm out of soft, so I'm almost out of regular. So I'm going to glue a bit of collage paper on each one of these, and then continue on. And I'm putting some some gel on top as well as underneath. And the reason I'm doing that is to seal the paper so that the paper doesn't end up being really absorbent. So I'm going to try and avoid the center, like smack dab in the center. That's so easy to do. And put these random in different places. The other paper that I like is a mixed media paper. It's not as heavy as this, so I don't think. And it also doesn't have the linen finish. So what's nice about this paper, the 6x6, is that I can mount it on a little cradled board after. It comes right to the edge of the cradled board. And I just like to mount it and then sand it a little bit around the edges so it doesn't kind of get nicked on the corners and stuff. So I'm just putting some of this everywhere, anywhere. This will just become a little pattern in amongst my marks. Again, try and avoid the center. It's just, I almost put that smack dab in the center. It's so easy to do. So that's all going to dry clear, even though it looks white on my brush. It'll all dry clear. It's just a starting place. Sometimes I start with this, sometimes I start with making marks. So my objective is to take a simple approach, and I'm just going to do something non-objective, abstract, making marks, putting colors down, using the two colors, and I want to try and keep it fairly simple, having some of the white of the paper left, not filling in every square inch of it. And I'm thinking about value, so I'll have my black and white because I'm going to use black for my marks. I've got black in my paper, I've got the white, and so my other colors will be more my mid values, so I'll have that covered with just what I'm using. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the black marks going on this with the paint, and I usually like to use the fluid paint or even the high flow, which is really liquid like an ink. But to do that, unless you want a lot of drips, you should work flat with the high flow. The fluid, you could work upright. I'm just out of fluid black now. So I'm using, you could use black gesso too. I'm using carbon black from Chroma. I have a big pot of it, and it's fairly thick paint, like tube paint. I'm going to put the marks on there. I'm going to need to let them dry before I add the color. It's just going to all kind of blend together and I'll have a mess. So while it's drying, I'm going to then mix up that awful green into something better and go from there. I'm going to try my faux Da Vinci brush. You could do this part with your non-dominant hand too. I've got some lights up here, so I'm going to have to be mindful of them, that I don't hit them. The idea behind having a long-handled brush is looseness, less control. I'm just going to try continuing my lines. And why I like fluid better actually is because I can keep it going longer. Yeah, so this dries up kind of fast on my brush. So all of this will influence my next marks. Okay, I'm going to switch my hands here and see how that goes. You have a lot less control. Woo! Okay, I'm going to switch back to this. Yeah, I'm having trouble going across just because my paper is not so solid on here. So this is a way of making a series as well. So they may not end up being hung in this orientation. Yeah, the paper moving is giving me a little bit of extra challenge. Okay. Okay, we'll leave it with that. I'm going to take this green. Now, are you guys with me? Do you think this is an ugly green, or would you actually use this green straight out? So I already pre-mixed a bit of this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some out, and I'm going to put some of this cad yellow out. So phthalo already has yellow in, or that green already has yellow in it, but I wanted a little bit more yellow green than blue, so I'm going to need more yellow, plus I'm going to use this yellow as one of my colors. I'll some of that out, and this one is fluid. I'm going to now add to this green, I'm going to add a bunch of white to it. And I want to try and make enough paint for 12 of these. So I've got a big pile now of mint green. I'm going to make it, push it a little more yellow. So I'm going to pop yellow in there. And that's going to make it a little more limey. But even so, it's going to take a lot of yellow. And I'm going to have more than I actually need here, but that's better than running out, I guess. So I'm pushing it towards yellow-green. That's getting better. I want to neutralize it down a little bit. So the phthalo, there's a blue shade, phthalo blue and a phthalo green, and this is a phthalo, this has phthalo green in it, but phthalo green in itself is somewhat blue. So this is where I've got it to now. It's a little less minty, a little more yellow-green. So to get it neutral, I am going to put some red in it, and I'm just using CAD red fluid paint, and you don't need much. So start with a wee little daub. So that's the green. So I might put a little bit more on in a couple places still, and I'm going to add some yellow. So I'm almost like making another texture with the yellow. So now I've got some yellow on all of them. I said I wanted to make some marks with this, but I don't think they're going to be too much into the paint because it's, oh, there's a few places. That kind of was interesting. So just kind of scratching back, making some marks. But I can also use this to add some paint. Oh, that's nice. So it's really interesting also to, to push yourself with less stuff. So I'm liking those marks. So I'm going to actually use my chopstick with a little paint on and just see what I can get here. So again, I think this would work better with the more fluid paint because it flows. So I like to do a lot of asemic writing type of mark making in a lot of my work too. So a lot of times I'll do something like that, a little more organic. That can be fun. Again, I said I wanted to keep these simple, and before you know it, I'll have played so much that they won't be simple anymore. So this is with the Lyra graphite. And I'm doing the mark making on this kind of similar, just to give it a little bit of frame around the edge. Okay, and so let's just see if the willow charcoal, I'll just do something different with that. So again, a little bit of wet paint there is pulling up. I got some interest. Again, you could use your non-dominant hand. A lot of times I will, but for this, I'm trying to stay out of the way so that you can see it. So just keep working with my right hand. These aren't necessarily beautiful and aren't necessarily finished. I would need to go back into them one at a time now, and I might also still add a bonus color to this, like I'm thinking adding a red dot could be really fun. I just have a little bit of red out here. Let's just test this in one of them and just see. So I'm going to go in this one. Let's see, I'll go right here. So it brings a center of interest to it. Oh, let's just take a look at these. That might need to be flipped. Again, they're kind of not that balanced because I only put a mark of yellow and green. This one's feeling a bit better. I do like the red dot. It's kind of interesting. Not so much. Again, some of these I'm thinking need to be flipped the other way. And I can also go back in with some white paint and modify, make some more black marks. That seems more balanced. So yeah, some of these just need some more additions and subtractions. A lot of times when there's just two colors, those are similar in size, you're getting some eye bounce. So again, I just go back in there and do a little bit more of one color. So maybe just pulling a little bit of green on the other side for balance. Yeah, just keep working on these. So that's kind of where I'll leave it for now, because I feel like I need to isolate them one at a time to work. So you can do this on a big piece of paper. I'll show you some that I did earlier. So these are some I did just on drawing paper, cheap drawing paper. And what I did was I took the mat and just made an outline, and then I worked on these all really quickly at one time. So again, constraints were very similar to this, two colors, black. These are straight out of the tube, burnt sienna and Naples yellow, and some charcoal and graphite and some collage. I did 3 sets of 4, and the only element that was different was the collage. In that last one I showed you was text. This one is some graphic elements out of magazines. I like to cut up words and use them as kind of strong graphics. And the other one I did had some vintage music paper. So these are a little bigger. They're 8 by 8, a little more real estate. So actually a nice size to work on. These are a little small, but nevertheless, it's fun to do a whole bunch together. And this is a good project for me to finish these based on what I've got started. So it's a great way to get started, warm up, get a series going. It's not overly precious because this is like $5 worth of paper that I put up here, and paint that I didn't even like. So I'm happier with that green color now, and does have a bit of a feel of spring. So yeah, so we got some opaque, some transparent. I may even mix a green and put a bit of a neutral tone in amongst this. So I'll keep working on them, but that's where they're at right now. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope that was valuable for you. I talked this week on my blog about constraints, and I hope that you'll take up a challenge or make one up of your own and just give it a whirl, whether you make 1 or 3 or 6, or you can paint representational as well. It doesn't matter, but just narrowing down our focus. So having every color in the box and using every crayon isn't always the best thing. So look through your supplies and see what you have that you could come up with some new combinations, maybe some way of tweaking a color that you don't like. This is a great opportunity for us to use up a lot of our supplies that are just been loitering around in our drawers, and I certainly have lots, and my favorite colors are getting used up as I keep painting here. So maybe I'll come up with some new favorites. We'll see.